The galaxy is in turmoil as the Vreni Dominion expands its reach, conquering world after world with relentless precision. Their armies are vast, and their technology, advanced beyond anything humanity has ever encountered. Entire civilizations have fallen before them, leaving nothing but ash and ruin behind. The Terran Alliance has fought bravely, but despite their efforts, the Vreni forces have pushed ever closer to Earth. Now only one hope remains, hidden in the deepest corners of the galaxy, a weapon so powerful that if it works it could turn the tide of the war and give humanity a fighting chance. The creation of this weapon has been kept secret for years, known only to a select few. The project has gone by many names, but none so fitting as the Leviathan. It is a ship unlike any the galaxy has ever seen. Its size is monumental, dwarfing all other warships. Its weapon systems are designed to be adaptive and capable of evolving in the heat of battle. Its engines harness the raw power of a dying star, and its AI is more advanced than anything humanity has ever known. It has the potential to change the course of the war, but no one knows for certain if it will work, or if it can even survive the first battle. A crew of the best soldiers, scientists, engineers, and strategists has been handpicked to board the Leviathan, but they have been kept in the dark as to the true nature of their mission. They know only that the fate of Earth rests upon their shoulders. They have trained for years, and now that moment has arrived. As the warship's systems come online, the crew gathers in silence on the bridge, each person feeling the weight of the responsibility they carry. The ship hums to life around them, and Captain Aria Holt steps forward to take her place at the helm. She is a seasoned veteran of countless battles and wars, a woman who has led her people through the darkest times and emerged victorious. But this time the stakes are higher than ever before. The fate of not just Earth, but all of humanity hangs in the balance. She takes a deep breath and looks out at the stars ahead. Her heart pounds in her chest, but her mind is clear. She knows what she must do. She knows that there is no turning back now. The countdown begins, and the Leviathan slowly moves toward the battlefield, its massive engines pushing it through the void of space. The crew watches in awe as their warship begins to accelerate toward the heart of the Vreni fleet. They are ready for what comes next, but none of them can predict just how fierce the battle will be. The Vreni are closing in, and Earth's defenses are barely holding as the crew of the Leviathan prepares to engage. The enemy area feels a surge of determination run through her. This is their moment. This is humanity's final hope. And they will not falter. They will fight with everything they have left to protect their world, and every world that depends on them, because this warship represents the last chance to prove that humanity is not just a fleeting moment in the galaxy, but a force that will survive and thrive. No matter the odds, the Leviathan has arrived, and so has humanity's last hope. Deep in the cold silence of space, the Leviathan's colossal form began to stir, its dormant systems awakening with a low hum that vibrated through the massive hull. For years, it had been nothing more than a secret, a sleeping giant hidden in the void beyond the reach of the Vreni Dominion's gaze. But now, as the war raged on, Earth's final hope was beginning to rise. The crew stood in anticipation, eyes glued to the monitors that flickered to life, displaying information they had only dreamed about. It was time to test the culmination of humanity's greatest minds, the pinnacle of their ingenuity, and the most dangerous weapon ever built. Captain Aria Holt, standing at the center of the command bridge, felt the weight of her position settle on her shoulders. She had led many campaigns before, but none like this. This was different. The Leviathan was more than just a warship. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance, a final stand against an empire that sought to wipe them from the stars. Her team, a mix of brilliant tacticians, scientists, and soldiers, all stood at their stations, their faces set with resolve. None of them were sure what to expect, but they all knew the stakes. Status report. Aria's voice rang out across the bridge, steady but filled with a quiet urgency. Lieutenant Marcus Dorian, the ship's chief engineer, was the first to respond. His hands flew across his console, checking the status of the Leviathan systems. All systems are online, Captain. Primary weapons are at full charge. Shields are functioning at 85% capacity, and engine output is stable. We're ready for launch." The crew's collective breath seemed to hold for a moment as the ship's massive engines powered up, the vibrations resonating throughout the ship. The Leviathan lurched forward as the gravitational pull of the star system began to take hold, slowly accelerating toward Earth's orbit. The size of the ship made the maneuver slow and deliberate, but its presence in space was undeniable. The Vreni fleet would soon know that humanity's final weapon had arrived. Aria's eyes shifted to the display screens showing the tactical map of Earth's sector. The Vreni were already closing in, their fleets gathered like a storm on the horizon, prepared to decimate Earth's remaining defenses. But the Leviathan wasn't just another warship. It was something entirely new, a living, breathing weapon designed not only for destruction, but for survival in the harshest conditions. And it was about to show the galaxy just how far humanity was willing to go. "Engage stealth mode," Aria commanded, her voice cold and decisive. The ship's AI immediately went to work, activating a cloaking system designed to make the Leviathan invisible to enemy sensors. For a moment, the giant warship seemed to disappear, hidden from the prying eyes of the Vreni. But Aria knew this advantage wouldn't last long. The Vreni were relentless, and they would stop at nothing to find and destroy their prey. The crew continued to monitor their systems, tension thick in the air. It was as if the entire universe had stopped, waiting for the first sign of conflict. But then, the silence was shattered. A deep rumble echoed through the Leviathan, the sound of its engines roaring to life as it began to breach Earth's atmosphere. The Vreni fleet had detected their arrival. The battle for humanity's survival had begun. "Captain, incoming Vreni ships," reported Commander Elena Rodas, the ship's tactical officer. Her fingers flew across the holographic control panels, her eyes scanning the oncoming ships with sharp precision. "They're coming in fast. We got about 10 minutes before they engage." Aria's grip tightened on the arm of her chair, her mind racing as she processed the situation. There was no time for hesitation, no room for doubt. They had to act quickly. The Leviathan's weapons, built for rapid adaptation, would be their advantage. Aria spoke again, her voice low and determined. "Prepare for combat. All hands to battle stations. Let's show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." And so, the battle began, not just for Earth, but for the future of every human who had ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of survival. The Leviathan had awakened, and its roar would shake the galaxy to its core. The Leviathan's massive form loomed like a shadow in the depths of space, its presence a stark contrast against the gleaming Vreni fleet that rapidly closed in. The ship's sleek, angular design glowed faintly with the hum of its power systems, and within its hull, the crew was on edge, preparing for the battle that would determine the fate of Earth. The Vreni had no idea what was coming. They had seen human ships before, small, fragile vessels compared to their own war machines, but this was something else. This was the Leviathan. "All systems at optimal efficiency," Lieutenant Marcus Dorian reported, his voice steady, but with a hint of excitement. "Shields are up. Weapon systems are fully charged. Ready when you are, Captain." Captain Aria Holt nodded, her mind sharp and clear. She had spent years preparing for this moment, and now it had arrived. She stood tall in the command chair, her gaze fixed on the holographic display in front of her. The enemy fleet was on a collision course, their ships massive and terrifying, each one a living nightmare in the void. But they would soon learn that humanity wasn't as helpless as they believed. "Activate main weapons," Aria commanded, her voice calm but filled with an unmistakable intensity. "Target the closest Vreni ship." The Leviathan's advanced AI immediately sprang into action, locking onto the nearest Vreni warship, a vessel that dwarfed any human creation. The ship's primary cannons, enormous and imposing, began to glow as energy surged through the weapon systems. The ship's sensors adjusted, calculating the precise trajectory of the shot, factoring in gravitational shifts and enemy movements. "Captain," Commander Elena Rojas called out, her eyes narrowing at the incoming fleet. "They've begun to open fire." they think they have us cornered. The first barrage of Vreni energy blasts shot toward the Leviathan, their bolts of destructive energy streaking through space like deadly comets. But the Leviathan moved like no other ship before it. The ship's AI adapted in real time, calculating the angles, speed, and power of the incoming fire. With a slight shift of the ship's mass, the Leviathan's energy shields flared to life, absorbing the Vreni's blasts like a sponge soaking up water. The Vreni, frustrated by the failure of their first strike, moved in closer, their ships forming a tight formation as they sought to overwhelm the Leviathan's defenses. But they had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt. With a calm, almost calculated precision, Area issued the order. Fire. The Leviathan's massive guns unleashed their fury. A blinding beam of pure energy tore through the darkness of space, striking the lead Vreni ship with pinpoint accuracy. The ship was obliterated in an instant, its shields buckling under the force of the blast, followed by a violent explosion that consumed the entire vessel. The shockwave rippled through the surrounding ships, sending them into disarray. For a moment, the Vreni fleet seemed stunned, unsure of what they had just witnessed. But it wasn't over. The battle was only just beginning. Target the next ship, Area ordered, her voice unwavering. The Leviathan's AI responded instantly, recalculating its weaponry and firing again. This time, the beam tore through another Vreni warship, leaving only debris in its wake. The ship's hull disintegrated under the assault, and in its place, only the cold vacuum of space remained. The Vreni fleet, now visibly shaken, attempted to regroup. The surprise of the Leviathan's firepower had caught them off guard, and they were not prepared for this kind of resistance. As they scrambled to retaliate, Area's voice rang out once again. "Keep up the pressure. We don't stop until they break." The crew moved with a new sense of urgency, their every action synchronized, as if the Leviathan itself had become an extension of their will. Each shot fired, each move made, was a testament to humanity's ability to adapt, to evolve in the face of the impossible. The Vreni, once so confident in their superiority, were now scrambling to respond to a threat they had never anticipated. The Leviathan wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's defiance embodied, a symbol of their will to survive. And now, in the cold vastness of space, they were proving it to the galaxy. "Enemy ships are retreating," Elena reported, her voice tinged with disbelief. "They've suffered significant losses. They're pulling back." Area allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The first strike had been a success, but there was no time to relax. The battle was far from over, and the Vreni would come back stronger. But for now, humanity had delivered a blow that would echo across the stars. They had sent a message to the Vreni. Earth was not a world to be conquered, and humanity was not a species to be ignored. The Leviathan's initial success sent shockwaves through the Vreni fleet. The devastating loss of 2 massive warships was unheard of, and the Vreni, typically impervious to anything but the strongest threats, were thrown into disarray. For the first time in this galaxy-wide war, the Vreni commanders hesitated. They had underestimated humanity, their eyes wide open to the terrifying potential of Earth's final weapon. But the Vreni were not a race to be cowed. Within moments, their strategy shifted, and they began to regroup with deadly efficiency. The fleet pulled back for a brief moment, recalibrating, and then, as one, they advanced with renewed ferocity. New ships, larger and more heavily armed, emerged from the depths of their ranks. These were the Vreni's elite warships, designed specifically to counter the impossible. The Leviathan. "Captain, they've reformed," Commander Elena Rojas reported, her fingers flying over the tactical panel. "They're bringing out their heavy hitters. We're not dealing with just any fleet anymore. They've called in their best." Area's gaze sharpened as she watched the tactical display. Hundreds of Vreni ships, now in an organized formation, closed in on the Leviathan. They had brought reinforcements, larger ships brimming with new technologies that had previously wiped out entire worlds. Aria had expected retaliation, but she couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The Vreni were evolving, learning, and adapting just as quickly as humanity had. The first wave came in fast, plasma turrets firing in perfect synchronization. Unlike their previous assault, this time the Vreni were not scattered. They formed a crushing barrage of energy weapons, aimed at the Leviathan's shield generators. The impact was immediate, sending ripples through the Leviathan's defenses as energy blasts struck its shields with brutal force. Shields at 70%, Marcus Dorian called out from engineering, his voice steady but tinged with concern. "We're taking heavy fire, Captain. The Vreni aren't holding back anymore." Aria clenched her fists around the armrests of her chair. The Leviathan's shields were holding, but barely. She could feel the immense pressure from the barrage, but she also felt something else, an overwhelming sense of defiance, a burning desire to push forward. Humanity's survival had always been built on the ability to adapt and fight against the odds. "Increase power to the forward shields," she ordered. "Engage evasive maneuvers. Let's not make ourselves an easy target." As the Leviathan's engines roared to life, the ship began to shift position, gliding through space with a speed that defied its massive size. The Vreni ships, relentless in their pursuit, continued to fire, but the Leviathan's advanced AI began to adapt, calculating each incoming strike and altering the ship's trajectory in real time. It was an intricate dance of mathematics and sheer willpower, with both sides locked in a deadly struggle for dominance. The next strike came in waves. The Vreni deployed their most dangerous asset, their elite fighters. These ships were smaller, more agile, and equipped with advanced cloaking technology that allowed them to slip through the Leviathan sensors undetected. Hundreds of Vreni fighters surged toward the Leviathan, invisible to the naked eye. Vreni fighters inbound. Multiple targets incoming. Alina shouted, her voice now filled with urgency. "They got stealth tech. We can't track them with normal sensors." "Activate our deep scan radar," Aria commanded. "We'll track them through their heat signatures. I want every fighter locked onto a target now." The AI kicked into high gear, quickly switching to a different set of sensors. The heat signatures of the Vreni fighters lit up like beacons on the tactical screen. The ship's main guns pivoted toward the incoming swarm, firing bursts of concentrated energy that shredded the first wave of fighters apart. Explosions filled the screen as Vreni ships scattered in all directions. But more fighters continued to swarm, relentlessly attacking. For every one destroyed, two more appeared in the black void of space. Aria knew they couldn't keep this up forever. The Vreni had brought their A-game, and humanity was facing the harsh reality that victory would not come easily. "Prepare countermeasures," Aria ordered, her voice unwavering. "Deploy drone swarms. Engage the Vreni fighters in close combat. We'll burn them down one by one." The Leviathan's drone bays opened, releasing dozens of automated combat drones that flew out, weaving through space like a cloud of stingers. These drones were designed for close-quarters combat, equipped with rapid-fire lasers and missile pods, able to track and destroy fast-moving targets. The battle intensified as the Leviathan's AI coordinated the drone's movements with the ship's turrets, turning the Leviathan into a whirlwind of destruction. But the Vreni weren't finished. With the fighters dispatched, the real threat arrived. The Vreni's flagship, a massive vessel known as the Inferno, appeared from behind a nearby asteroid belt. It was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. Its hull was reinforced with unknown alloys, and it bristled with enough firepower to wipe out entire fleets. The flagship moved toward the Leviathan with terrifying purpose, its weapons already charging. "Here they come," Aria said softly as she stared at the flagship closing in. "Prepare for the worst." The Leviathan shuddered as the Vreni flagship, the Inferno loomed in front of them like an unstoppable juggernaut. Its massive silhouette was a terrifying sight, and Arya could feel the weight of the coming battle pressing down on her. This was the moment. The Vreni were throwing everything they had at humanity's last stand. The ship's main guns powered up with a hum that vibrated through the deck, as if they too were preparing for the most brutal of encounters. "Captain, the Inferno has launched its first volley," Commander Elena Rojas reported, her voice tight with the urgency of the situation. "Energy cannons, full power, targeting our starboard side. They've got us in their sights." Arya's eyes locked on the tactical display. The Inferno's main guns flared to life, sending streams of intense energy beams that screamed through space, each one capable of decimating a warship in seconds. The Leviathan's shields flared under the barrage, rippling with the sheer force of the impacts. Shields holding at 50%, Marcus Dorian shouted from the engineering station, his hands a blur as he adjusted power levels. "We're taking heavy fire, Captain. We can't keep absorbing this much longer." "Activate evasive maneuvers," Arya ordered, her voice cold and precise. "Get us out of the direct line of fire. Power up the secondary defense systems. Use every ounce of energy we have." The Leviathan twisted in space, its massive engines roaring as the ship veered sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding another blast from the Inferno's main cannon. The ship's AI calculated the optimal path, guiding them with precision as its thrusters pushed the Leviathan forward into a brief moment of safety. But Arya knew it wouldn't last. The Inferno was relentless, and the Vreni commanders were far from naive. They'd anticipated the evasive moves and had already sent in their elite fleet of heavy cruisers to flank the Leviathan. With a violent lurch, the Vreni cruisers opened fire, their massive plasma cannons locking on to the Leviathan's port side. Incoming from the left, multiple cruisers. Elena barked, her eyes glued to the holographic display. The Vreni had surrounded them in a coordinated effort that left little room for escape. Arya clenched her fists. "Deploy drone swarms. Let's thin their ranks. Target the cruisers first. I want them disabled, not destroyed. No more wasted shots." The Leviathan's drone bays opened, releasing dozens of smaller ships that shot out like deadly bees swarming their enemies. These drones were designed for precision, swarming the Vreni cruisers and disabling their systems with pinpoint accuracy. Explosions erupted as the drones hit their targets, but the Inferno continued to advance, its massive form closing in. "We've got less than 3 minutes until that Inferno is in range again, Captain," Elena said grimly. "We need to do something now, or we'll be destroyed in the next strike." Arya's mind raced. She had known this battle would test the Leviathan like no other. But the Vreni flagship wasn't just a symbol of their power, it was the heart of their fleet, and taking it down was the key to breaking their strength. The crew had to fight like never before. "Marcus," Arya said, her voice low, "get us in position for a direct strike. I want to hit their core reactor, take out their power supply. Focus everything we have on that target." "Captain, we're dangerously low on energy reserves," Marcus warned, his voice strained. "We've been absorbing too much damage. We might not have the power for a full assault." "Then we make it count," Arya said firmly. "Overload the main guns. Use every last ounce of energy we have. This is our chance. This is Earth's chance." The ship's massive energy cannons charged again, their deadly barrels aimed at the Inferno's center. The Vreni flagship loomed closer, its shields flashing as it prepared for the final strike. "Captain, we're locked on target," Elena confirmed. "They won't see this coming." With a final, earth-shattering roar, the Leviathan released its last, desperate volley. The concentrated blast of energy shot forward, a blinding beam of pure destruction that cut through the void of space. The shot collided with the Inferno hitting its central reactor with surgical precision. The Vreni flagship shuddered as its shields collapsed, and a massive explosion tore through the heart of the ship. The shockwave sent a ripple through the surrounding ships, disrupting their formations. The Inferno faltered, its power systems flickering as its hull cracked open like a broken egg. Arya felt a surge of triumph. The first of the Vrini's greatest weapons had fallen, but she knew this was far from over. "Captain, they're regrouping," Alina said, her voice tense. "We've crippled the Inferno, but they still have plenty of firepower left. We're not out of danger yet." Arya took a deep breath, her fingers curling around the armrest of her chair. The battle was far from won. The Vrini would come again, and they would come with fury, but humanity's resolve had been proven. The Leviathan had struck a blow that would echo through the galaxy for ages to come. Earth's warship had arrived, and it was here to stay. The explosion that had ripped through the Inferno sent a shockwave of panic through the Vrini fleet. For a moment, the vast space around the Leviathan was eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the creaking of the ship's hull as it adjusted to the shifting gravity fields. The Inferno, once a symbol of the Vrini's invincibility, was now a shattered wreck, its hull glowing orange as it drifted into the dark abyss of space, its power systems offline. But the Vrini were not a race to succumb to defeat. The sight of their flagship crumbling only ignited a greater fury in their ranks. With ruthless precision, they repositioned their remaining ships, rallying to strike back harder, faster, and more deadly than before. "Captain," Alina Rota's voice broke through the tension on the bridge. "They've reformed again. The remaining Vrini forces are regrouping and setting up for a multi-pronged assault. We can't keep dodging forever." Arya Holt stood motionless at the command chair, her eyes scanning the tactical display, calculating their options. The Inferno was gone, but the Vrini still had formidable firepower. The battle was far from over. Humanity's last hope had scored a victory, but the Vrini had been pushed to the edge, and they were about to retaliate with everything they had. "We need to hit them before they regroup completely," Arya said, her voice filled with icy resolve. "Prepare for a full assault on their flank. Let's give them a taste of what they've unleashed." The crew sprang into action, their movements sharp and practiced. The Leviathan's AI began making rapid adjustments, calculating the optimal course for attack. The ship's weapons powered up once more, their energy flowing into the devastating cannons that had already proven their might. Marcus Dorian's hands flew across the controls, rerouting power from non-essential systems to reinforce the weapon systems. They had to make this count. "Captain, we've lost contact with some of the drones," Marcus reported, concern evident in his voice. "They're being overwhelmed by the Vrini's fighter swarm. Their numbers are too great. Redirect the drones to assist in the attack on the Vrini cruisers," Arya ordered, her gaze locked on the approaching enemy. "We'll thin their numbers from the inside out." The Leviathan's drone bay opened once more, releasing a new wave of automated fighters that darted into the battlefield, engaging the Vrini ships in a vicious close-quarters fight. The drones were nimble and well-equipped, weaving in and out of enemy formations, launching laser-guided missiles, and rapid-fire blasts that tore through the smaller Vrini ships. Meanwhile, the Leviathan itself took a more direct approach. The ship's massive guns charged, their power surging as the crew watched the tactical readout. Arya's heart raced in her chest, but her face remained calm, the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders like an unshakable force. "Fire!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the silence. The Leviathan's primary weapons unleashed a violent wave of energy that collided with the Vrini cruisers, sending shockwaves rippling through their hulls. The first cruiser was torn apart in an explosion of debris, its remnants scattered in all directions. The other ships fared no better. The energy beams cut through the Vrini defenses like a hot knife through butter, and the Vrini began to falter. But the Vrini were not without their own tricks. As the Leviathan began its assault, the Vrini flagship's remaining fleet commanders activated a devastating new weapon, an interstellar gravity weapon designed to disrupt the Leviathan's core systems. The Vrini ships, now positioned around the Leviathan, deployed their gravity disruptors, creating a field that began pulling at the massive warship, slowing its momentum and distorting its trajectory. "Captain, they've activated the gravity wells," Elena warned. "We're being pulled into their trap. Our engines can't compensate for the force." Aria felt a chill run down her spine as the ship began to list, the sudden pull of the gravity wells warping the Leviathan's course. The stars around them seemed to swirl in chaotic patterns as the Vreni fleet advanced, pushing them closer to a deadly ambush. But she refused to relent. She had come this far. Humanity's fate was in her hands. "Hold steady," Aria commanded, her voice unwavering despite the gravity waves pressing in on them. "Marcus, divert all power to the auxiliary thrusters. We fight through this." Marcus worked furiously, rerouting power through every available system, pushing the Leviathan's already strained engines to their limits. The ship groaned under the stress, but it held. Slowly, agonizingly, the Leviathan began to break free from the pull of the gravity wells. It was a desperate maneuver, and the ship's systems were strained to the breaking point. "Just a little longer," Aria whispered to herself as the Leviathan surged forward, breaking free of the Vreni's trap. Just a little longer. As the ship regained its stability, the crew held their breath. The Vreni's assault was still coming, but now the Leviathan was free to strike back once more. Aria's gaze hardened. The warship had been tested, but it had survived, and it would fight until the very end. "All hands, prepare for the final push," she ordered. "We're not done yet." The Leviathan's engines roared as it broke free from the crushing grip of the Vreni's gravity wells, the strain on the ship's systems palpable. The crew felt the weight of the moment, each person on the bridge aware that this was their one chance. The tide of battle had shifted in their favor, but the Vreni were not about to let their most powerful weapon be destroyed without a fight. "Captain, they're coming in fast," Elena Rojas said, her fingers flying across the control panels. The Vreni fleet had reassembled with renewed urgency. Their ships, now in tight formation, launched another volley of plasma bolts aimed directly at the Leviathan's weakened shields. Aria Holt's expression remained stone-cold, but inside, she felt the pulse of determination. She had known the odds. She had known the risks. But this was humanity's moment. The first strike had been a victory, but this was the war. "Marcus, power up the secondary reactors," Aria ordered. "We're going to need all the energy we can muster to take these bastards down. Focus on boosting the shields. We need to hold them off long enough for our final assault." "Understood, Captain," Marcus replied, his voice sharp with focus. "Secondary reactors coming online now. Shield strength increasing. We're ready." The Leviathan's shields flared back to life, their glow brighter than before as the ship prepared to take on the full force of the Vreni's retaliatory attack. The enemy fleet surged forward, their ships firing in coordinated patterns, their advanced weapon systems pushing the Leviathan's defenses to the limit. "Engage evasive maneuvers," Aria ordered. "We'll give them a moving target they can't track." The Leviathan shifted, its massive form dodging to the left as plasma bolts and energy blasts tore through the space it had just occupied. The Vreni ships closed in, their superior numbers attempting to overwhelm the human warship. The fight had reached its peak, and Aria knew that every second counted. "Captain," Elena's voice came again, urgent. "The Vreni flagship is locking onto our aft shields. They're preparing for a full power blast." "Countermeasure," Aria barked. "Deploy decoy drones. Give them something to chase." A cloud of drones erupted from the Leviathan's bays, scattering into the path of the oncoming Vreni fleet. The drones emitted false energy signatures, mimicking the ship's own systems and confusing the Vreni targeting systems. For a moment, the Vreni flagship hesitated, recalculating its firing angle, and the attack lost its momentum. "Direct hit from a Vreni cruiser on our starboard side," Marcus called out, his voice grim. "Shields holding at 30%. Hull integrity compromised." The Leviathan rocked under the force of the hit, the interior lights flickering, but Aria remained steady. This was what she had prepared for. Humanity's weapon, Earth's weapon, wasn't just a warship. It was a symbol, a message. It wasn't about the size of the enemy fleet. It was about the strength of will. "We've got one shot at this," Arya said. "Olenna, calculate their core reactor's position. I want everything focused on that. We're not retreating. We're ending this." Olenna worked quickly, her eyes darting between the tactical screens. "Core reactor position locked," she said, her voice determined. "Firing coordinates are set." "Fire," Arya commanded. The Leviathan's massive guns powered up, their energy charged to the maximum. The ship's AI locked onto the Vreni flagship's core reactor, calculating the most efficient trajectory. With a final, deafening roar, the Leviathan unleashed its most devastating barrage yet. A beam of pure energy shot forth, illuminating the space between the two warships with a blinding light. The beam struck the Vreni flagship dead center, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to stand still. The explosion that followed was unlike anything the crew had ever seen. The flagship's shields flickered out of existence, and its hull buckled under the force of the blast. The Vreni warship disintegrated into 1,000 pieces, its remnants scattering in all directions, leaving only a cloud of debris in its wake. The remaining Vreni ships faltered. The loss of their flagship had shattered their morale, their coordinated assault grinding to a halt as they scrambled to regroup. Arya's eyes narrowed as she watched the last of the enemy ships begin to retreat, breaking away from the battlefield in a disorganized frenzy. "Captain," Olenna said quietly, her voice tinged with disbelief, "they're retreating. The fleet is pulling back." For a moment, the crew stood in stunned silence, absorbing the magnitude of what had just transpired. The Leviathan had delivered a devastating blow to the Vreni fleet, and for the first time since the war began, it seemed that the tide was turning in humanity's favor. But Arya knew better than to relax. She had seen the ruthlessness of the Vreni firsthand, and she understood that this retreat was not the end. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. "Prepare for a counterattack," she said, her voice steady. "This isn't over yet. We've sent them a message, but the Vreni won't give up this easily. Stay sharp. We're not out of the woods yet." The retreating Vreni fleet had scattered into the void, their once dominant formation now in disarray. The Leviathan's crew watched the debris cloud left behind by the Inferno and the shattered Vreni cruisers, but no one dared to relax. Arya Holf stood at the front of the bridge, her eyes scanning the horizon, the weight of command heavier than ever. This victory was significant, but the war was far from over. "Captain," Olenna Rojas said, her voice tense, "we've picked up a strange energy signature coming from deep within Vreni-controlled space. It's unlike anything we've encountered before. Something's coming. Something big." Arya's pulse quickened. She had expected retaliation, but this was something new. The Vreni weren't retreating in the traditional sense. They were regrouping, perhaps preparing for a final weapon. The quiet had been unsettling, and now it made sense. They had not yet shown their full strength. "On screen," Arya ordered, her voice calm despite the storm raging inside her. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a vast, dark mass drifting just beyond the asteroid belt. It was a ship, but not just any ship. The size was unimaginable, dwarfing even the Inferno. It appeared to be made of solid black metal, its surface reflecting no light, as if it had absorbed the very stars around it. "This is it," Marcus Dorian muttered under his breath, his hands flying over the controls as he analyzed the incoming threat. "That thing is enormous. It's a superweapon, Captain. I've never seen anything like it." "We've seen enough to know we can't let it reach Earth," Arya said, her voice hard as stone. "Prepare to engage. Full speed ahead." The Leviathan surged forward, its engines roaring as the ship gathered momentum. The crew worked in a symphony of urgency, each member knowing that their lives, and the fate of humanity, rested on the outcome of this final battle. The massive Vreni ship loomed closer, its energy signature intensifying. The closer they got, the more Area realized just how outmatched they were. This was not just a warship. It was a weapon of annihilation, a doomsday device designed to obliterate entire planets. "Captain, the ship's shields are almost impenetrable," Elena reported, eyes wide. "Our energy blasts aren't even leaving a scratch. This is beyond anything we've ever encountered." Area's mind raced. They were facing a true enemy superweapon, one that could easily tear Earth apart if they didn't stop it. They needed a new strategy, a bold, risky move that might just give them the edge they needed. "Marcus, I want all remaining drones to deploy in a diversionary attack," Area ordered. "We'll draw its fire. Get us within striking distance, as close as we can safely manage." "Understood, Captain," Marcus responded, his fingers a blur as he executed the orders. The Leviathan shuddered as it sped forward, the remaining drones launching in a flurry of motion, zipping toward the massive Vreni vessel like a swarm of deadly wasps. The enemy ship's weapons began to fire, blasting through the drones with laser precision, but the drones did their job, distracting the Vreni long enough to allow the Leviathan to close the gap. Area's heart raced as they neared the weapon. She could see the massive cannon at the center of the Vreni ship, a weapon capable of erasing entire cities in a single shot. This was it. This was humanity's last chance. "Lock on to the cannon's core," Area ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding. "All remaining energy into one shot. We won't get a second chance." The Leviathan's weapons powered up once more, the last reserves of energy flowing into the ship's cannons. The crew worked with fevered intensity, knowing that the next few moments would determine everything. The Vreni ship's weapons were already charging, preparing to unleash its devastating firepower. "Captain, their cannon is charging," Elena shouted, urgency bleeding into her voice. "We've only got seconds." "Fire," Area commanded, her voice sharp. The Leviathan's main guns unleashed a final, blinding beam of energy. The shot streaked across the void, cutting through the space between the two ships in a flash of light. The Vreni superweapon's core reactor was struck directly. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the explosion came, a cataclysmic burst of energy that shattered the Vreni ship's defenses in an instant. The entire Vreni superweapon crumpled, its massive form buckling under the force of the explosion. The shockwave rippled outward, tearing apart the remaining ships in the Vreni fleet. The space around them was suddenly filled with the sounds of collapsing structures, the silent scream of a once mighty war machine collapsing into itself. Area allowed herself a brief moment of relief, her body slumping in the command chair. They had done it. Earth had survived. The Leviathan, humanity's final hope, had delivered a blow so devastating that the Vreni fleet was no more. But as the crew took in the aftermath, the gravity of their victory began to set in. They had faced overwhelming odds, and against all expectations, they had won. The universe had seen what humanity was capable of, defiant, resilient, and unstoppable. "All ships, retreat to Earth," Area said, her voice strong once more. "The war is over. We've won." The Leviathan turned toward the distant stars, its crew victorious. The final command had been given, and Earth's warship had arrived.